Good evening. Hello, good evening. And I'd like to welcome members, officers and viewers to the Braintree District Council YouTube channel to this meeting of the Licensing Committee. Thank you very much for attending. We will start with apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Finch, substituted by Councillor Beavis, Councillor Van Dolken, substituted by Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Walters, Councillor Pell and Councillor Green. I haven't received any other.
I think Councillor Eaton is at another meeting tonight as well. I was asked to give apologies, but it wasn't quite clear which meeting he was asked me to give apologies.
That's very kind of you, Councillor Mason. Thank you. It's noted. Thank you. Before we get through to the main pieces, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any disclosable or non-disclosable interests on any of the items on the agenda? No? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. It should have been circulated a long time ago. I take it everybody's read them, understood them, and can have a proposer. Councillor Wright, seconder, Councillor Parker. All in favour? Thank you. Give me a moment and I will just sign the minutes. Okay, thank you. Next item 4. Public question time. We have no registered speakers tonight, so we will move on to item 5, the Licensing Act 2003 revision statement of the licensing policy, and that's on pages, excuse me, pages 5 through to 71. I hope everybody's read it properly, and loads of questions for the licensing officer here. Right, we are asked to note the statement and then give officers the delegated authority to make minor adjustments on any typographic errors. And I'll hand over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as members are probably aware, our Licensing Act policy statement needs to be reviewed every 5 years and published. This one expires that we're currently working under the beginning of January of next year. The members have already seen the draft policy and back in January approved the draft to be put forward for consultation. The 12-week consultation has taken place, and during that 12-week consultation, we didn't receive any consultation responses. We did receive some responses asking for clarity, but no input on changes or the proposed changes. So the draft statement remains intact as you originally approved. The only amendments that have been made are because of the length of time that has passed since the consultation has ended, and obviously when members originally saw the draft, the responsible authorities' contact details have changed and team names have changed. So they've been amended to reflect the current status of that's required for the policy. So the changes from the current policy remain as what was put forward to members back in January and are outlined in the document. And now we're seeking to get approval to, as the Chairman has already alluded to, get this approved so it can be put to full council ready for publication at the beginning of January next year. There's also the caveat that in the recommended decision that officers continue to be able to make minor amendments such as typographical errors that are made before submission to full council. So that's it. Here, obviously, to answer any questions if members have any. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Mason, thank you.
Thank you. I have a question regarding point 14.7. I'd just like an explanation of it. I don't know if there's an error or I am misunderstanding it, but it seems to be referring to whether it's a garage or not, whereas I thought it would be, should be referring to whether it's a shop set licensing. I didn't really quite understand it, and I would like maybe a bit more of an explanation. Could just me being thick.
Yeah, so to answer that, the legislation and the guidance, there's certain caveats regarding the ability of the council to accept licences from garages in the traditional sense, like petrol station, filling stations, because obviously the vast majority of users of those services are driving. The government and the guidance and legislation puts certain controls in place that we wouldn't normally give licences unless they can meet a certain strict criteria regarding proportion of sales. That section is purely in dealing with that, and it is the definition that's in there is what's in the legislation and in the guidance. That's the intention. It's just something we don't necessarily get involved in, and members definitely won't normally, because that decision is made at an officer level, because there's normally, I off the top of my head, it's to do with percentage of sales, and they need to evidence that their primary purpose isn't selling petrol, and that their main purpose is the shop element. The problem with that is garages have changed a lot over the last 10 years, and probably you can imagine the vast majority now have a substantial shop element, which is why it's dealt with in the legislation and obviously our policy and guidance.
Okay, so can I just check? So is there a separate then criteria that would establish whether it was one or the other, or would somebody, a licensing officer, have to actually go out there and?
Yeah, so the initial application is on trust, where normally lawyers write down and provide the evidence, and then it's for us to then, once a licence is granted, or through the consultation process when applications go through the public consultation element, to deal with it at that stage. But there's an ongoing duty to maintain that criteria of not being predominantly a petrol forecourt that throughout the duration of the licence. And obviously if that changes, that can then be addressed through a number of ways, and that may be when members get on. But it's not something that has ever been locally a problem so far, but we still obviously have to deal with it in our policy.
Yeah. No, thank you, and I appreciate that, just because they are so different depending where you go. So thank you very much for that explanation.
Any other questions? Councillor Beavis.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask John, and I know I've asked this question before over the years, but I'm just seeking clarity. So in terms of the consultation, that goes out broadly to all the residents of the district, and then we write, is that right, to the other statutory partners, such as the police? So we haven't had anything back at all, not from anybody. Is that right?
Yes, it is. It is right, and unfortunately we are looking at ways of actively encouraging more engagement during the consultation process. I'm aware that the council has invested in some software that we currently aren't utilising, but will look to utilise in the future to increase engagement. That for the first time, we've used social media, but unfortunately the topic is fairly dry. The changes that we are proposing aren't huge, and also the government are looking at making certain changes in the future which may require us to amend our policy, and obviously there are political changes that are happening locally that may input, because this ultimately may be the last policy statement we have, but it is difficult, and it's never a good thing when people aren't engaging in consultations, because ultimately we do want that level of engagement to obviously be able to put information towards members and to make informed decisions. But the reality is the consultations for our policy statements across the board, not just licensing, do struggle to attach some sort of engagement. It's normally law firms that are involved, but I think because of how we are in the cycle of that we aren't making or dealing with any big changes that are being proposed or upcoming, our policy has remained the same, and the changes that have been put in the draft are fairly minor, and it's just sad. And we always have the ongoing issue of that. Are you contacting the right people? But that is constantly evolving, and I'm hoping that by using the new technology, we can sort of create that level of engagement. But unfortunately, you, as you're aware, you can't force people to engage. So that's where we are.
Thank you for that, John. And I know I've asked this question before over the years, so I kind of know the answer, but it is, in some respects, you know, there's nothing detrimental that's come back to the service either, which I think is quite good, actually, considering the size of the district. So I suppose you can take that in one of two ways. I guess it's really how we report that to full council, really, isn't it? That we have gone out to a consultation, and you know there are no areas that have been, you know, which I think in some respects a good thing. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham, thank you.
I can't recall off the top of my head, because that was 5 years ago, but we didn't receive. I think it was one issue, I believe, that was very localised, that it was a member of the public that had a certain concern that they thought should specifically be addressed in the policy, and I think there was also some clarification from a law firm off the top of my head that believed our policy should be worded in a different way. But yeah, it's not great, but there are positives, as have already been explained. But I do generally still think going forward we need to continually keep looking at how we do our consultations, and if technology can help with that, social media engagement and things like that, then albeit I think that should. But we have what we have at the moment. None of the responsible authorities made a response, which they're the responsible authorities. So you would think they're the people with the most interest in what our policy says and how we should, and they're either happy with it or aren't engaging for other reasons. So that's.
Sorry, can the case come back on it?
No, but generally we.
There would be an agreement, I guess, so they probably don't.
Yeah, I can't take the fact that they haven't made engaged with us during the consultation, that they are. But generally speaking, we have worked on an Essex-wide model historically, and we've not really. And the changes we've proposed aren't deviating from that in any way. If anything, it's bringing it more into the modern era with Ask Angela and things like that, and the schemes that are running. So it's a case of I'm not overly concerned that there hasn't been any consultation responses. I think if there was some dramatic change in the legislation, which may be coming in the future, and we may talk about that later, with what the government are proposing, and then that in itself may encourage engagement and when changes occur.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I think the list you put up the front there of all the changes was very useful, because in the past we haven't had that. We've had to scan through it and try and remember what the last policy was. But this time it was a lot easier to read and straightforward, the fact that all the changes were detailed at the front of the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If I may, that's a conscious effort, and I'm glad it's been acknowledged by members, because that is something that we want to make it easier for you, and it's fairly straightforward for us to do. And you know, it's. Thank you for mentioning it. Yeah.
It just made it so much easier.
Councillor Parker. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to second that as well. And yes, I'm happy with all the amendments that have been made. They seem to be very sensible. And yes, picking up changes, as you say, the Ask Angela scheme, there's more reference to smoking outside and problems that can cause. And also, it seems to be really helpful to have introduced a glossary of terms and also a guidance on the application process. So I think that will really help applicants. So yes, I think good changes. Thank you, Chair.
I have one question. We can debate it. On page 12 of the Licensing Act, it's 2.1. It gives the description of the district is in square kilometres. And then when you go down to page 31, Appendix 1, it refers to it in square miles. For consistency pieces, should it be 1 or should we keep as it is? I'm asking questions of the fine committee we got in front of us.
I think it evolves the youngsters and the olders.
And where do we put ourselves, Councillor Wright?
Brought up because when I went to university or college, as it was then, I worked in imperial units up to leaving school, and the first year of college, the SR units came in, so everything changed. So I still work in both. I was still working 4 inches by 25 millimetres.
Is there any preference which we prefer, or are we quite happy to leave as it is, that covers both angles?
I think it covers both angles.
Okay, all right. We will leave as it is then. Thank you. Is there any other questions on this? No, we're doing well. So I'm just going to ask the committee to note it. We'll take it as noted. And any typographical errors we will pass over to the officers.
Chairman, you need to agree it. This is a
That's
recommendation
agreed.
of council.
So we, do you need a seconder and
A motion to
a
move.
motion to move
And a vote.
and a vote? Yep.
And
So
that's
it's
to
councillor
agree to
Parker.
refer it to council.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda, and that is the Licensing Committee update, item 6, which is pages 72 to 77. And we'll hand back to John Meddings to give us an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to advise members, this report is just for noting. It's just giving you an update of what's happened from business from when we last met to the current, well, not to the current day, to the about 2 weeks ago. We continue to be busy with drivers panels, and as most members will probably be aware, an action we've taken in various different cases are detailed in the report. There's also been a licensing subcommittee hearing. Regarding Fincherfield Lavender Limited. we continue as a team to conduct proactive enforcement actions with our colleagues at Essex Police, and our dates and action taken in those joint visits have been listed in the report for your information. The rest of it is basically updates on what's going on in the licensing realm that you may be interested in. Probably the standout is the prosecution we took locally about refusing of assistance dog that ended in a successful prosecution. The change I mentioned briefly when we were talking about the Licensing Act policy statement, that there are changes being proposed by the government. I wouldn't call it a light touch, but they're trying to ease the regulatory burden, I believe, on the industry and the ways of doing that, notably from an application process is some may consider antiquated, the requirement of a newspaper advert and things like that. So that is being currently reviewed. There's changes in the Gambling Act. There seems to always be ongoing changes or suggested changes being proposed in the Gambling Act of what to do. Nothing actually for us to deal with at the moment, but it's useful to keep members appraised. There's a section on animal welfare, and then obviously there's lots happening outside of the traditional licensing regimes that we're used to. For instance, the vape ban, although we're not responsible for it currently, we do a lot of joint work with trading standards regarding the ban and ensuring it's being complied with. The Martins Law, we're still awaiting formal guidance, but that will gradually filter through to licensing applications as we go forward, and members may be involved in hearing applications that may or may not reference that. And then obviously the modern slavery guidance that we need members should be aware of. But yeah, that's a quick whistle-stop tour of everything I've listed there. If members have got specific questions, I can obviously answer them. I can't go into individual cases and previous action we've taken, but I'm happy to answer more general questions. Thank you, Chairman.
So any questions on this item? Councillor Parker.
Just the very last paragraph of modern slavery guidance refers to the licensing regulatory services vital tools for disrupting exploitation businesses like hand car washes and nail bars, but the licensing doesn't cover either of those businesses, does it?
No, that's right. But the council generally as a whole may get involved in car washes and nail bars from other regulatory regimes. We obviously license private hire vehicles. It's not necessarily a problem we've experienced here locally, but they've obviously included private hire vehicle drivers as part of that potential exploitation. It's more something to be aware of. I've never had any experience locally regarding private hire vehicles and modern day slavery, but modern day slavery is the terminology is far wider than the term gives, and you know there are examples of it happening nationally where people are being forced into employment, and I think it's more just something for members and officers to generally be aware of in their decision making and things like that. But like I say, it's not currently an issue locally, but it's for members to be aware of.
Any other questions? No? Right, well the recommendation is for noting purposes only. So we just take it, we're all noted. Thank you. we'll go through to, excuse me, item 7, urgent business, public sessions. We have nothing. There's nobody here, there's nothing. And then private sessions, we've got nothing to discuss privately. So we are completed. And I shall call this meeting to an end at 19:40. Thank you very much.